I still remember the sound of my keys hitting the floor. Not a clatter or jingle, but a dull thud against the carpet that somehow echoed through my entire body. Funny how your brain photographs these moments. The keys splayed out like a crime scene, my wedding ring catching the light from our bedroom down the hall. Our bedroom, where my husband and my best friend were having sex. I stood frozen in the entryway of our home, the renovated craftsman that Alex and I had poured 4 years of weekends into. The home where Casey had helped us paint the kitchen that perfect shade of sage green. Drinking wine on the floor as we debated crown molding. The moans filtered down the hallway, unmistakable. Casey's voice, a voice I knew from 15 years of late-night calls and shared secrets, now twisted into something that burned my ears. "You can't tell her," she was saying between heavy breaths. "Promise me, Alex." I should have screamed, should have stormed down that hallway and caught them in the act. Instead, I bent down, picked up my keys with trembling fingers, and backed out the front door, closing it with excruciating care. In my car, I sat with my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, painful bursts. My phone buzzed, a text from Casey. "Still on for brunch tomorrow? Can't wait to hear about your meeting." The meeting, the promotion I'd been working toward for 3 years, the reason I'd come home early, wanting to share my news with Alex first. I drove to a hotel that night, paid with cash, sat on the edge of a bed with scratchy sheets, staring at the wall until sunrise stained the cheap curtains pink. When I finally returned home the next day, they'd covered their tracks. The sheets were changed, the bedroom window cracked to release any lingering scent of betrayal. Alex kissed my cheek, asked about my meeting with practiced concern. I didn't get it, I lied, watching his face. They went with someone else. "Oh, babe." His arms around me felt like restraints. "Their loss. You'll get the next one." I nodded against his chest, wondering if Casey's perfume was embedded in his skin, the same perfume I'd helped her pick out last Christmas. 3 days passed. I moved through our house like a ghost, cataloguing evidence of their deception. The shower used at odd times, Alex's sudden interest in his phone, Casey's too bright smile when she stopped by with coffee, her eyes never quite meeting mine. "You seem off, Daisy," she said, stirring cream into her cup. "Is it still the promotion thing? Because honestly, you're too good for that place anyway." I studied her face, the face I'd known since college, the face that had cried at my wedding. "Just tired," I said. "Well, perk up," she laughed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Life's too short to waste on disappointments." The words hung between us, and something in her tone, a hint of dismissal, of superiority, cracked something open inside me. That night, I waited until Alex was asleep before slipping into his home office. His laptop password was still my birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for until I found it. Emails, dozens of them, stretching back 7 months. "Miss you already. D still suspects nothing. Meeting tomorrow." Last night was incredible, getting harder to wait between our times. Sometimes I think we should just tell her. She's so wrapped up in work anyway, maybe she wouldn't even care. My stomach lurched, but I kept reading, scrolling through their digital affair until I found something else, something unexpected. Casey had been feeding Alex information about my company, Meridian Tech, where she served as CFO. Insider details about restructuring, about positions opening before they were announced, about the promotion I was being considered for. "Make sure Daisy doesn't get that director position. We need someone more flexible in that role for what's coming. I've already spoken to the board about concerns with her vision. Trust me on this." My hands went numb. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. Casey had actively sabotaged my career while sleeping with my husband. I closed the laptop, my mind suddenly, terrifyingly clear. The hurt was still there, a gaping wound in my chest, but something else was rising through the pain. Something cold and focused. Casey's words from 3 days ago replayed in my head. Life's too short to waste on disappointments. She was right about one thing. I'd been disappointed in my marriage, in my friendship, in my career. But disappointment was passive. What I felt now was anything but. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, transferring half of our joint savings to my personal account. Then I texted Casey. "You're right, life is too short. Brunch tomorrow. I need your advice on something important." Her reply came instantly. "Always here for you. Usual place at 11. I smiled at my phone, the expression feeling foreign on my face. Casey had no idea what was coming. Neither did Alex. But I did. And for the first time in days, I slept without dreams. The morning of brunch, I woke up with purpose burning through my veins. Alex had already left for his client meeting, another lie I'd added to my growing collection. I dressed with deliberate care. A cream blouse Casey had always envied, hair loose the way Alex preferred it, armor of a different kind. The restaurant was our usual spot, a sun-drenched corner cafe where the mimosas came in crystal flutes and the waitstaff knew us by name. Casey was already there, tapping at her phone, her sleek dark hair pulled into a perfect low bun. When she saw me, her smile was dazzling. There she is. She stood to hug me, her expensive perfume wrapping around me like a noose. "God, you look amazing. New blouse?" "Old favorite," I said, returning her smile with one that felt stretched across my face. "Thanks for meeting me." "Always." She signaled for mimosas before leaning forward. "So, what's this important thing you needed advice on? Is it about the promotion? Because I could talk to—" "It's about trust, actually." I kept my voice light, watching her face. "How do you know when you can really trust someone?" Something flickered behind her eyes, so brief I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking. "That's philosophical for brunch," she laughed. "But I guess it depends on the situation. Work, relationship?" "Both, maybe." I accepted the mimosa the server placed before me, not drinking. "I've been thinking a lot about loyalty lately." Casey took a long sip of her drink. "Loyalty's complicated. Sometimes what looks like disloyalty is actually protection." "Protection," I repeated, tasting the word. "Interesting perspective." "I just mean sometimes people make choices that seem questionable, but they're actually trying to protect someone they care about." She was speaking carefully now, measuring each word. "Like when a friend undermines your career to protect you from success." The word slipped out, sharper than I'd intended. Casey's face froze. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back, suddenly tired of the performance. "I know, Casey. About you and Alex. About what you did to block my promotion." Her face drained of color. "Daisy, don't." I held up my hand. "I saw the emails, all of them." The silence between us stretched, taut and dangerous. Around us, the restaurant continued its cheerful weekend buzz, oblivious to our implosion. "It wasn't what you think," she finally said, voice low. "Alex and it just happened. And the promotion, I was trying to protect you from a bad situation. The company's restructuring. That position is being eliminated in 6 months." "Bullshit." The word felt good on my tongue. "The board approved a 3-year budget for that department last quarter. I prepared the financial projections myself." Casey's eyes narrowed slightly. "How would you know what the board—" "Because unlike you, I actually do my job instead of sleeping with my best friend's husband." I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. "You've always underestimated me, Casey. It's your biggest mistake." She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Daisy, please." "Let me explain. It's complicated." "No, it's actually very simple." I stood, dropping cash on the table. "You betrayed me. Both of you did. But here's what you should know. I got the promotion anyway." Her head snapped up. "What?" "They called yesterday. Director of Strategic Operations, effective immediately." Funny thing about going behind someone's back, sometimes it backfires. The shock on her face was almost worth everything. Almost. "Congratulations," she managed, voice strained. "That's great news." "It is," I agreed. Especially the part where my first project is auditing the executive expense accounts, including yours. Casey's face went from pale to ashen. You wouldn't. 7 months ago, I wouldn't have, but people change, don't they? I shouldered my bag. Oh, and don't worry about telling Alex. I'll handle that conversation myself. As I walked away, she called after me, Daisy, wait! You don't understand what you're doing. I didn't turn back. At home, I packed methodically. Clothes, important documents, the few family heirlooms I couldn't bear to leave behind. I'd already rented a furnished apartment across town, paid 3 months in advance. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone buzzed with texts from Casey. Please call me. This isn't just about us. There are things you don't know. You're making a dangerous mistake. I blocked her number. The last thing I did before leaving was place my wedding ring on Alex's pillow with a note. Ask Casey about the Meridian audit. She can explain why I'm gone. As I drove away from the house we'd built together, I felt strangely hollow. The rage that had propelled me through brunch was cooling into something harder, more focused. Casey's warning echoed in my mind. You don't understand what you're doing. She was wrong. For the first time in years, I understood exactly what I was doing. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it until I saw the area code. Meridian's corporate headquarters. Daisy speaking. Ms. Hamilton. A man's voice, unfamiliar but authoritative. This is Carlos Reyes from the board. We need to meet. Today, if possible. It's about Casey Fernandez. I pulled over, heart pounding. I'm listening. Not over the phone, he said quietly. But you should know. You're not the only one she's betrayed. The coffee shop Carlos chose was deliberately nondescript. A chain store in a strip mall where nobody would look twice at two people hunched over laptops. I arrived early, claiming a corner table with my back to the wall. Old habits from childhood. Always know your exits. Carlos arrived precisely on time. A tall man with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of expensive watch that people who understand wealth never draw attention to. I recognized him from company photos, but had never spoken to him directly. Board members didn't typically interact with people at my level. Thank you for meeting me, he said, settling across from me without offering a handshake. His eyes scanned the room before landing on mine. I apologize for the cloak and dagger, but discretion is essential. Why? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. What has Casey done? He opened his laptop, turning it toward me. Casey has been systematically siphoning company resources for the past 18 months. We're talking millions in misappropriated funds, falsified reports to shareholders, and strategic information sold to competitors. The documents on screen showed transaction records, email exchanges with redacted names, and financial discrepancies highlighted in angry red. That's not possible, I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were false. Casey built Meridian's financial structure. She's been with the company since the beginning. Which made her betrayal all the more devastating, Carlos said quietly, and all the more difficult to detect. I stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. The audit I've been assigned is a cover. We needed someone with your financial acumen who wasn't part of Casey's inner circle. Someone who would notice the discrepancies without being complicit. He paused. What we didn't anticipate was your personal connection to the situation. My laugh was bitter. You mean you didn't know she was sleeping with my husband while sabotaging my career? His expression remained neutral. That complicates things. It simplifies them, I countered, something cold settling in my chest. Tell me what you need me to do. For the next hour, Carlos outlined the plan. I would proceed with the audit, focusing on specific accounts Casey controlled. I would report directly to Carlos and 2 other board members, bypassing normal channels. The goal was to gather enough evidence to remove Casey and pursue legal action without tipping her off. She has allies throughout the company, Carlos warned. Trust no one except me and these 2 board members. He slid a paper across the table with 2 names. I memorized them before handing it back. "What about Alex?" I asked. "My husband. Is he involved?" Carlos hesitated. "We don't have evidence linking him directly to the financial improprieties, but their relationship suggests he may know more than he's letting on." I nodded, unsurprised. Alex worked in commercial real estate, no direct connection to Meridian, but he'd always been unusually interested in my work, in Casey's work. "One more thing," Carlos said, closing his laptop. "Casey knows something's happening. She's been making moves to protect herself, including this." He showed me his phone, an email from Casey to the entire board, sent an hour ago, expressing grave concerns about my emotional stability and professional judgment following personal difficulties. My hands curled into fists under the table. "She's trying to discredit me before I can expose her." "Yes, and it might work if we don't move quickly." Carlos's eyes met mine. "The question is, can you do this, given everything?" I thought about Casey's face at brunch, about Alex's arms around me while he lied, about 15 years of friendship and 7 years of marriage, all built on sand. "I can do it," I said. "I want to do it." Back at my new apartment, I spread out the files Carlos had given me, creating a timeline of Casey's activities. The pattern was sophisticated, but, once you knew what to look for, obvious. Small discrepancies compounding over time, money moving through shell companies, strategic decisions that benefited competitors, who then hired consulting firms linked to those same shell companies. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Please." Alex. My finger hovered over the block button, but something stopped me. If he was involved with Casey's schemes, keeping a line open might prove useful. "Nothing to talk about," I replied. "I know about the audit. Casey told me everything." "You're making a mistake, Daisy. These people will destroy you." My heart stuttered. "What people?" "The board isn't being straight with you. There's more going on. Meet me. Just once. For your own safety." I stared at the message, mind racing. Was this manipulation, or did Alex actually know something I didn't? Carlos had been forthcoming, but boards protected themselves first. Always. Before I could decide, another text came through. "Casey isn't who you think she is, but neither is Carlos. Check the Artemis files before you go any further." Artemis files. I'd never heard of them. I started typing a demand for explanation when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, black, with close-cropped hair and intense eyes. She held up a Meridian ID badge. "Zariah Knight, Information Security." "Ms. Hamilton," she called through the door. "I need to speak with you about Casey Fernandez and about what Carlos Reyes isn't telling you." My phone buzzed again with Alex's message. "Don't trust anyone who comes looking for you, especially not from Meridian." I stood frozen between the door and my phone, suddenly aware that I had stepped into something far more dangerous than a love triangle or financial fraud. Whatever game was being played, I was no longer just a pawn. I was a player, and it was time to make my move. I opened the door with my phone in hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. Up close, Zariah looked even more intense, the kind of person who never needed to raise her voice to command a room. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice low and measured. "That depends on why you're here." She glanced down the hallway. "I'd rather not discuss sensitive company information in a public space." I hesitated, then stepped aside. Self-preservation warred with curiosity, and curiosity won. Once inside, Zariah declined to sit, instead pacing the small living room with controlled energy. "I'll be direct. Carlos Reyes is using you." "Interesting opener," I said, keeping the door unlocked behind me. "Especially coming from someone who works for Casey." "I don't work for Casey. I work for Meridian's Security Division, which reports directly to the board." She stopped pacing. "The same board that's currently split into warring factions, with you caught in the middle." I crossed my arms. Prove it. Zaraya pulled out her phone, tapped a few times and handed it to me. On screen was an email thread between Carlos and someone named Marcus discussing the Hamilton situation. She's perfect, motivated by personal vendetta, skilled enough to trace the accounts, and expendable if things go sideways. The Fernandez problem solves itself, and we maintain plausible deniability. My stomach clenched. This could be fabricated. It could be, Zaraya agreed. Just like the evidence Carlos showed you about Casey could be manipulated. The question is, who do you trust? No one, I said automatically. Not anymore. Something like approval flickered across her face. Smart. Trust the evidence, not the people presenting it. She nodded toward my laptop. The Artemis files are encrypted financial records from the last 2 years. Casey created them as insurance. They show who's really been embezzling from Meridian. And how exactly would I access these files? You're the financial expert. You tell me where someone like Casey would hide her most valuable insurance policy. I thought about it, mind racing through possibilities. Somewhere hidden but accessible, somewhere tied to a memory or personal significance that only she would recognize. Zaraya nodded. The annual reports. Check the supplementary data appendices for the last 8 quarters. The password pattern would be something meaningful to her. I turned to my laptop, pulling up Meridian's financial database. My credentials still worked. Either they hadn't gotten around to locking me out, or they wanted me to keep digging. Neither option was particularly comforting. The supplementary appendices were massive data dumps, hundreds of pages of numbers that regulators required, but almost no one actually read. Perfect hiding place. In each one, I found a small embedded file with an innocuous name, A1, A2, and so on. Artemis, I murmured, the goddess of the hunt. The password took 3 attempts. Not Casey's birthday or her mother's name, but the street address of the coffee shop where we'd first met in college. A place only I would remember the significance of. The files opened, revealing transaction records, board meeting minutes, and email exchanges. As I scanned through them, my breath caught. This shows Carlos and 3 other board members orchestrating the embezzlement, I said, scrolling through damning evidence. They've been using Casey's department as cover, manipulating records, and... I stopped, seeing a familiar name. Alex, my husband is listed here as an external resource. What does that mean? Zaraya's expression softened slightly, the first crack in her professional veneer. He's been helping them launder money through real estate deals, properties purchased, renovated with company funds, then sold with the profits going to offshore accounts. Our house, the renovations we'd done, the clients Alex was always meeting. It all clicked into horrible focus. Casey found out, I said slowly, the truth dawning on me. That's why they wanted me to investigate her. They're setting her up to take the fall. Yes, and now they're setting you up too. Zaraya checked her watch. We don't have much time. Carlos will realize I've contacted you soon. Why are you helping me? What's your stake in this? She met my eyes directly. Casey saved my job last year when I was being pushed out. I owe her. But more importantly, I believe in doing what's right. This company has been my life for 8 years. I won't watch it be destroyed by corrupt leadership. My phone buzzed again. Alex calling this time. I let it go to voicemail. What's the play here? I asked Zaraya. If I can't trust Carlos or the board, and Casey's being framed, where does that leave me? In a unique position. You have access to both sides now. You can continue working with Carlos, feeding him what he expects, while we gather enough evidence to take to the authorities. But we need to move carefully. I raised an eyebrow. You need allies, Daisy. Right now, I'm offering to be one. My voicemail notification pinged. Alex's message was brief. They're watching your apartment. Get out now. As if on cue, my phone lit up with the text from Carlos. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. My office. Bring everything you've found so far. I looked at Zariah. If I do this, play double agent, I'm putting myself at risk from all sides. Casey betrayed me personally. Carlos is using me professionally. My husband has been lying about everything. True, she said simply, but you're already in the middle of this. The question is whether you want to be a pawn or a player. I closed the laptop, decision made. I need to see Casey tonight. Can you arrange that? Zariah nodded, already typing on her phone. Pack a bag. Don't use credit cards or your car. And Daisy? Her eyes met mine. From this point forward, trust your instincts. They're the only thing not compromised. As I threw essentials into a backpack, I realized I'd crossed a line. There would be no returning to my old life, no matter how this ended. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt strangely liberated. Zariah drove with the focused intensity of someone used to crisis management, taking a circuitous route through the city, while I huddled in the passenger seat, watching for tails. Where are we meeting Casey? I asked, as we crossed into an industrial district I barely recognized. Neutral ground, a restaurant owned by a friend who values privacy. Zariah's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Casey's already there. The restaurant turned out to be a small Vietnamese place wedged between a warehouse and an auto body shop. Inside, the handful of tables were empty except for one in the back corner, where Casey sat nursing a glass of something amber. She looked up as we approached, her expression cycling through surprise, relief, and wariness. Gone was the polished executive I'd seen at brunch. This Casey looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face bare of makeup. You came, she said, eyes fixed on me as Zariah took a position near the door. I wasn't sure you would. I slid into the booth across from her. I'm not here for reconciliation. I know. She pushed a folder across the table. I'm here to give you this, the complete Artemis files, including evidence I haven't had time to upload. Bank statements, recorded conversations, everything you need to bring Carlos down. I left the folder untouched. Why should I believe anything from you? You slept with my husband. You tried to sabotage my career. Casey flinched. I deserve that, but right now, we have bigger problems than our personal history. That's where you're wrong, I said, leaning forward. Our personal history is exactly the problem. You don't betray someone for 7 months and then expect them to trust you in a crisis. I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for cooperation. Her voice dropped. They're going to kill me, Daisy. The bluntness of it hit me like a physical blow. What? Carlos and his faction. They've already tried once. A brake malfunction on my car last week. That's when I knew I had to accelerate my timeline. She took a shaky breath. I never meant for you to get involved. When I found out what they were doing, I started gathering evidence on my own. Then they somehow discovered I was onto them, and suddenly, you were being promoted into a position designed to set you up as their scapegoat. And Alex, I forced myself to ask the question I'd been avoiding. How deep is he in this? Casey's expression softened with something dangerously close to pity. He's been working with them for years, before you were even married. It's how we met. He approached me at a company event, started feeding me information. I thought he was just a charming guy with insider knowledge. By the time I realized what was happening, I was compromised. So sleeping with him was what? Your cover? The bitterness in my voice could have stripped paint. It was a mistake, she said quietly. The worst I've ever made. Not just professionally, but... She looked down at her hands. You were my best friend. The only real thing in my life. I destroyed that and I can't fix it. But I can try to keep you alive. Part of me wanted to walk out, to leave Casey to the mess she'd helped create. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had made me good at my job, recognized the truth when I heard it. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning, for the next 30 minutes, Casey laid it out. How Carlos and his allies had been systematically looting the company for years, using increasingly complex financial maneuvers to hide their tracks. How Alex had been recruited early on to help with the real estate side of their money laundering. how she had discovered discrepancies in the books and started investigating privately. When they realized I was gathering evidence, they needed a distraction and a potential fall person, she explained. That's where you came in. The perfect patsy, the betrayed wife with financial expertise and a personal vendetta. And now they're getting nervous. The quarterly audit is coming up and there are too many loose ends. They need to clean house. She glanced at Zariah, who nodded confirmation. Starting with me, then you, then anyone else who knows too much. I finally pulled the folder toward me, flipping through documents that confirmed everything she'd said. What's your plan? Get this evidence to the SEC and FBI simultaneously. But we need to move fast, within the next 24 hours. After that, she left the sentence unfinished. My phone buzzed. A text from Carlos. Change of plans. Meeting tonight instead. 8 p.m. Non-negotiable. I showed it to Casey, whose face went pale. They're accelerating too. We're out of time. As if on cue, Zariah moved swiftly from her post by the door. We've got company. Black SUV just pulled up outside. Casey grabbed my wrist. There's a back exit through the kitchen. Zariah knows where to take you next. I'll create a diversion. Wait, I said, suddenly realizing what she was proposing. You can't. I got you into this. Let me get you out. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the Casey I'd known for 15 years. The friend who had held me through breakups and job losses, who had been my maid of honor, who I had trusted with everything. I'm sorry, Daisy, for all of it. She pressed something into my hand, a small USB drive. This has everything, including recorded conversations with Alex. Use it. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Casey shoved me toward the kitchen. Go. Now. Zariah pulled me through the swinging doors as I heard Casey call out, Carlos, what a surprise. Care for a drink? In the alley behind the restaurant, engine already running, waited a car I recognized instantly, Alex's Audi. And behind the wheel, looking grim and determined, sat my husband. Get in, he said. We need to talk. Are you insane? I hissed, backing away from the car. I'm not going anywhere with you. Alex's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Daisy, please. We have maybe 30 seconds before Carlos's men come around that corner. Zariah's hand closed around my arm. He's right. We need to move. When I shot her a disbelieving look, she added, I don't trust him either, but right now he's our best option. A shout from inside the restaurant decided for me. I slid into the back seat, Zariah following, her body tense as a coiled spring. Alex accelerated the moment our doors closed, taking the first corner so sharply I had to brace against the seat. How did you find us? I demanded. I've been tracking Casey's movements for weeks, he said, eyes on the rearview mirror. When she suddenly changed her pattern tonight, I knew something was happening. You've been spying on your lover? How romantic. His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. It never is with you, is it? The anger I'd been suppressing erupted. Was anything real? Our marriage? The house? Or was I just convenient cover for your criminal activities? We're being followed, Zariah cut in, looking out the back window. Black SUV, 2 cars back. Alex swore under his breath, taking a sharp right down a narrow side street. Hold on. For the next 10 minutes, he navigated a maze of alleys and side streets, his face a mask of concentration. I'd seen that expression before, when he was closing a difficult deal, when we were arguing, when he was lying. The familiarity of it made my chest ache. Finally, he pulled into an underground parking garage beneath an anonymous office building, driving to the lowest level before stopping in a dimly lit corner. We should be safe here for a few minutes, he said, turning to face us. Daisy, I know you have no reason to trust me. Understatement of the century. But I'm trying to help you. I've been working with the FBI for the past 3 months. I laughed, the sound harsh in the confined space. Right, you're a criminal informant now. How convenient. Instead of arguing, Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Not a replica or a prop, but a genuine FBI consultant ID with his photo. Zariah took it, examining it with expert eyes before handing it back. It's real. I got in over my head, Alex said quietly. Carlos approached me 4 years ago with what seemed like a legitimate investment opportunity. By the time I realized what was really happening, I was already implicated. When the FBI started investigating Meridian 6 months ago, they gave me a choice: cooperate or go to prison. And Casey, I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice, was sleeping with her part of your cooperation agreement. Pain flashed across his face. That was a mistake, the worst I've ever made. It started as a way to get information, then became something else. Something I'm not proud of. Spare me the contrition, I snapped. Casey's back there facing Carlos because of what you both did. Casey's been playing all sides from the beginning, Alex countered. Yes, she discovered Carlos's scheme, but she also used that knowledge to leverage her own position. She's been skimming from their operation for months. I turned to Zariah. Is that true? Her expression remained carefully neutral. Casey's not innocent, but right now she's the lesser evil compared to Carlos. The FBI has been building a case against all of them, Alex continued, but they need concrete evidence linking Carlos directly to the financial crimes. That's where you come in, with your expertise. I'm not interested in being anyone else's pawn, I cut him off. Not yours, not the FBI's, not Casey's. Then what do you want, Daisy? Alex asked, his voice softening. Tell me and I'll help you get it. The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? My old life back? None of those seemed adequate anymore. I want the truth, I finally said, all of it, and I want to make my own decisions based on that truth. Alex nodded slowly. Fair enough. The truth is, Carlos and his people are desperate. The FBI is closing in, and they're looking to clean house. Casey was first on their list, but you're a close second. The meeting Carlos scheduled for tonight is a trap. So what's the play? Zariah asked. We can't keep running. We don't, I said, an idea forming. We use their plan against them. I pulled out the USB drive Casey had given me. We have evidence that could bring down Carlos and his entire operation, but we need to get it to the right people. The FBI has an agent standing by, Alex said, but we need to move fast. I studied my husband's face, the face I'd woken up to for 7 years, the face I'd thought I knew better than my own. Behind the familiar features was a stranger, and yet... Why should I believe you're really working with the FBI? This could be another trap. Because despite everything, I never stopped loving you, he said simply. And I won't let them hurt you. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because I believed them, but because part of me wanted to. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Casey in custody. Carlos knows about the USB. Coming for you next. Z? I showed the message to Zariah. Not me, she said, suddenly alert. Someone else. Alex checked his watch. We're out of time. Carlos's meeting starts in an hour. We need to decide now. Run or fight. I thought about Casey, about the years of friendship before the betrayal, about Alex and the life we'd built on lies, about Carlos and his smug certainty that he could use me and discard me. We fight, I said, gripping the USB drive. But we do it my way. I turned to Zariah. Can you get us into Meridian headquarters undetected? A slow smile spread across her face. That's literally my job. Good. I faced Alex. Call your FBI contact. Tell them to be ready, but not to move until they hear from me. What are you planning? He asked, a note of wariness in his voice. Something Carlos won't expect, I said. I'm going to attend his meeting after all. Meridian's headquarters looked different at night. All sleek glass and strategic lighting, the company logo pulsing blue against the darkness like a heartbeat. Or a warning. Zariah led us through a service entrance, using her security credentials to bypass the main desk. The skeleton night crew barely glanced our way as we moved through the building, Zariah's confident stride suggesting we belonged. Carlos will be in the executive conference room, she murmured. guiding us toward a service elevator. 7th floor. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished metal doors, hair pulled back severely, eyes hard, mouth set in a determined line. I barely recognized myself. The room is wired for recording, Zariah explained as we ascended, but I can disable the official system. Your phone is set to record? I nodded, patting my jacket pocket where my phone was already running a recording app. The USB drive from Casey was in my other pocket, a small weight that felt impossibly heavy. Once we're in position, I'll text the FBI contact, Alex said. They have agents standing by, but they need at least 15 minutes to mobilize. I'll give them 20, I replied, not looking at him. No more. The elevator doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. Zariah motioned us to follow, leading us not toward the conference room, but to a small security office nearby. I need 5 minutes, she said, sliding into the chair at the monitoring station. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. There, I've looped the camera feeds in the hallway and disabled the conference room recording system. As far as security is concerned, nothing unusual is happening tonight. On the monitors, I could see the conference room. Carlos was already there, along with 2 men I recognized from board photos. They were talking, faces animated but audio muted. Where's Casey? I asked, scanning the screens. Not there, Zariah confirmed, frowning. That's not good. Change of plans, I said, making a quick decision. I'm going in alone. Alex, stay here with Zariah. If I'm not out in 20 minutes, call in the FBI regardless. Daisy, no, Alex protested. It's too dangerous. This is my fight, I said firmly. Has been from the beginning. Besides, Carlos is expecting me alone. Anything else will tip him off. Before either could argue further, I slipped out of the security office and made my way down the hall. Each step felt deliberate, my heart beat steady despite the danger. For the first time in weeks, my mind was perfectly clear. I paused outside the conference room door, took a deep breath, and entered without knocking. The conversation inside cut off abruptly. Carlos looked up, surprise flickering across his face, before settling into a practiced smile. Daisy. Right on time. He gestured to an empty chair. Please join us. I remained standing. Where's Casey? Ms. Fernandez is indisposed. The older man to Carlos's right spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority. I'm Harold, by the way. We haven't formally met. The third man didn't introduce himself, just watched me with cold, assessing eyes. I asked where Casey is, I repeated, moving further into the room, but not taking a seat. Carlos's smile tightened. She's being dealt with appropriately, given her betrayal of the company. But that's not why we're here. He slid a folder across the table. We need your preliminary audit findings. Tonight. I let my gaze move deliberately around the room, taking in details, the positions of the men, the exits, the laptop open on the table. Building time, building tension. Interesting that you're so eager for my findings, I said finally, especially since I've discovered some irregularities that trace back to this room. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Careful, Daisy, Carlos warned. You're making serious implications. Not implications, evidence. I pulled out my phone, making a show of accessing files. Financial records, offshore accounts, real estate transactions through shell companies, all leading back to you, Carlos, and you, Harold, and your silent partner here. Harold's face flushed with anger. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? I turned the phone toward them, showing a document from Casey's files, a bank statement with Harold's signature, authorizing a transfer to an account in the Caymans. This is just the beginning. I have everything. Carlos stood slowly, his friendly facade evaporating. Where did you get that? Casey wasn't as easy to silence as you thought, I said, backing toward the door. She's been documenting your operation for months. Give me the phone, Daisy. Carlos's voice was soft, dangerous. Now. Or what? You'll arrange another car accident? Like you did for Casey. I kept my voice steady, despite the fear crawling up my spine. It's too late. The evidence has already been sent to the FBI. The silent man finally spoke. She's bluffing. Am I? I pulled out the USB drive. This contains everything, every transaction, every email, every conversation, including the one where you discussed eliminating me as a loose end. Carlos lunged suddenly, faster than I expected. His hand closed around my wrist, twisting until I gasped in pain. "Give it to me," he hissed. "Let her go, Carlos." Casey's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, bruised but upright, with Zariah and Alex flanking her like guards. Carlos's grip tightened. "How did you get away?" Casey stepped into the room. "You should hire better men, or at least men who can't be bought for the right price." "This is a mistake," Harold said, rising from his chair. "Whatever you think you're doing..." "Exposing you," I finished for him, wrenching my arm free from Carlos's grasp. "All of you." "You have nothing," the third man said dismissively. "No proof that would stand up in court." "Actually," Alex said, holding up his phone, "we have your entire conversation from the last 5 minutes, including your assault on my wife." "The FBI is already in the building. It's over." Carlos's face contorted with rage. He reached inside his jacket for a weapon, I realized with sudden clarity, but before he could draw it, Casey moved. She slammed into him with surprising force, driving him back against the conference table. They struggled briefly before Carlos shoved her away violently. She stumbled backward, colliding with a chair. "You ungrateful bitch," he snarled. "After everything I did for you." "After everything you took from me," Casey corrected, straightening. "My reputation, my integrity, my best friend." Her eyes met mine briefly. Some things can't be replaced. The sound of multiple footsteps in the hallway silenced whatever Carlos might have said next. The door burst open as FBI agents flooded the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. In the chaos that followed, Carlos and the others being cuffed and read their rights, agents securing the room, Casey made her way to my side. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for everything." I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing both the friend I'd loved and the woman who had betrayed me. The anger was still there, but something else too, something like understanding. "I know," I said finally. As the agents led Carlos past us, he stopped, his eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over, either of you." I stepped forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Yes, Carlos, it is." And in that moment, watching him being led away in handcuffs, I finally felt the weight I'd been carrying begin to lift. Dawn broke over the city as I sat in the FBI field office, my 5th cup of coffee growing cold between my hands. The adrenaline had long since faded, leaving me hollow and exhausted. Around me, agents moved with practiced efficiency, processing evidence and taking statements. "Just a few more questions, Mrs. Cooper," the agent across from me said. "Hamilton," I corrected automatically. "I'm going back to my maiden name." He nodded, making a note. "Of course, Ms. Hamilton. Can you walk me through how you first discovered the discrepancies in Meridian's accounts?" I began the explanation again, my financial training making it easy to articulate the complex fraud scheme. As I spoke, I watched Alex through the glass partition of another interview room. He was leaning forward, earnest and engaged as he always was when closing a deal. I wondered if he'd use that same expression when he first approached Casey, when he first betrayed me. "That should be sufficient," the agent said finally, closing his notebook. "We'll need you to sign a formal statement later today, but you're free to go for now." In the lobby, Zariah waited, looking remarkably composed despite the night we'd had. "They're releasing Casey too," she said as I approached. "Immunity deal in exchange for her full cooperation." "Good," I said, and meant it, surprising myself. The elevator doors opened, and Casey stepped out, flanked by another agent. She hesitated when she saw me, uncertainty flashing across her face. "I'll give you 2 a minute," Zariah said, stepping away discreetly. Casey approached slowly, as if expecting me to turn away. They told me you corroborated my statement, confirmed I was being coerced. You didn't have to do that. I told the truth, I said simply. Carlos was threatening you. That doesn't excuse everything, but it's a factor. She nodded, eyes downcast. I never thought it would go this far. When I found out what they were doing, I just wanted evidence to protect myself. Then Alex got involved, and everything became so complicated. Why didn't you come to me? The question that had been burning inside me for weeks finally emerged. Before any of this happened, before Alex, Casey's laugh was bitter. Because you were the one person I couldn't bear to disappoint. You always saw the best in me, even when I didn't deserve it. She met my eyes directly. I was a coward, Daisy, and I lost the best thing in my life because of it. The words hung between us, heavy with 15 years of history. Road trips and late-night confidences, shared apartments and shared dreams, and now, shared betrayal. I can't forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever for Alex, but I understand how Carlos operated, how he found people's weaknesses and exploited them. My weakness was always wanting more than I had, Casey admitted. More success, more recognition, more of what you had. And now? Now I just want to make things right, however I can. Before I could respond, Alex emerged from his interview room, spotting us immediately. His face registered surprise, then caution as he approached. They're letting me go for now, he said, stopping a respectful distance away. Full immunity in exchange for testimony. Congratulations, I said flatly. You get away with it. Again. He flinched. I deserve that. I deserve worse. Yes, you do. I turned to face him fully. You know what I keep thinking about? Not the affair, not even the fraud. I keep thinking about our vows, for better or worse. You chose worse, Alex. Deliberately. Repeatedly. I know, he said quietly. I destroyed everything good in my life because I was too weak to make the right choice. I don't expect forgiveness, Daisy, but I am sorry, more than I can ever express. Looking at him, this man I had loved, had built a life with, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The anger was still there, but it no longer consumed me. I believe you're sorry, I said, but that doesn't change anything. Casey shifted uncomfortably. I should go, my lawyer's waiting. She hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, Daisy, you were always the strongest of us. I just never understood how much until now. After she left, Alex and I stood in awkward silence. What will you do now? He finally asked. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought beyond survival, beyond justice. I don't know, I admitted. Start over, I guess. Somewhere new. The FBI mentioned you might be offered a position with their financial crimes division, Alex said. Your expertise was impressive. I raised an eyebrow. Tracking criminals instead of being used by them. There's a thought. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You'd be good at it. I would, I agreed, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. The main doors opened, and sunlight streamed into the lobby, bright and uncompromising. Outside lay a world fundamentally changed from the one I'd known a week ago. My marriage was over, my closest friendship shattered, my career in transition, and yet, standing there in that moment of reckoning, I felt something unexpected, possibility. I should go, I said, gathering my things. There's a lot to figure out. Alex nodded, not trying to stop me. For what it's worth, Daisy, you deserved better. From both of us. I know, I said, and the knowledge felt like power. That's why I'm going to make sure I get it. I walked out into the morning light alone, but not broken. The betrayal that had defined my recent past would not dictate my future. That belonged to me now. Every choice, every consequence, every new beginning. As I hailed a taxi, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Position available if you want it. We could use someone who knows how to follow the money. Agent Reeves. I smiled, tucking the phone away. Tomorrow would bring decisions, But today was for reclaiming what was mine. Not the life I had lost, but the woman I had found in its ruins. Stronger than before, wiser than before, and finally, irrevocably, free.
After I declared my intention to resign, Maya sneered at me, prompting me to meet her gaze with a quiet, unyielding stare. Our earlier discussion had revolved around the company's plan to slash labor costs by targeting those allegedly abusing overtime. Michael, too, appeared quite pleased with the prospect of cutting expenses. A week later, my phone buzzed non-stop with calls from the company. When I finally picked up, the president's voice was sharp as he demanded, "Who exactly are you?" I replied with a mocking laugh and introduced myself as Abigail, a 62-year-old employee who had dedicated 40 years to the company since graduating from college. I elaborated on my role in providing administrative services, mainly to busy company presidents focusing on tax matters and clerical duties. I proudly managed a portfolio of 46 clients, a load that had become taxing even with the assistance of a part-timer. Despite these challenges, I remained steadfast. Our long-standing clients depended on us, and their needs only fueled my commitment. Now, sitting at my computer, I felt the oppressive weight of continuous harassment from Michael and Maya. Michael, who was 7 years my junior and had recently been promoted to head of the tax department, had altered his demeanor dramatically. Gone was his polite tone, replaced by a condescending and critical attitude that made every interaction with him a trial. Despite my pushback, he seemed unbothered, always directing me to consult the manual for guidance and cautioning me against unnecessary actions. Maya, his administrative assistant, participated in the harassment, questioning my efficiency and mocking my seniority, even though she was the first to decline a promotion to department head, a fact unknown to both her and Michael. Amidst my routine tasks, their taunting persisted. Michael criticized me for purportedly wasting time by logging extra hours, while Maya claimed that my frequent overtime was detrimental to the entire tax department's performance. The recent surge in my hours stemmed from Michael unexpectedly dumping a month's worth of client files on my desk, all needing to be filed by month's end. After work, my face turned pale as I looked over the pile of files. "Wait, all of these have deadlines this month, right?" I muttered in confusion. Before I could fully comprehend the magnitude of the task, Michael was already packing up his desk. Indifferent to my dismay, he casually remarked, "I'm heading out, take care," and swiftly left the office, leaving me to face the daunting workload alone. Faced with a towering stack of urgent tasks, Maya added insult to injury by laughing mockingly as I started sifting through the scattered client files on my desk. To my dismay, I discovered some of these files were originally Maya's responsibility. This realization deepened my frustration. It became clear that Michael's relentless harassment aimed to push me towards early retirement. Despite my years of dedicated service and deep knowledge of taxation, which made me a preferred resource for colleagues over Michael, his distant demeanor and lack of approachability made everyone, except Maya, avoid him. It appeared that Maya's closeness to Michael was not merely coincidental, but strategically motivated by his preference for younger female employees. The shallowness of their tactics sent chills down my spine. Maya's harassment extended beyond personal vendettas. She aimed to curry favor with Michael, who was responsible for evaluating the department's performance. Amid these challenges, I juggled filing tax declarations while also preparing statements for my assigned clients. The day's workload was far from over, but I knew that claiming overtime would only invite further harassment from Michael and Maya, leaving me resigned to the likelihood of unpaid extra hours. Unexpectedly, I received a summons to the president's office. The company had recently experienced a leadership shift due to the former president's sudden illness, and his son, the new president, was still unfamiliar with the intricacies of the company. Upon entering the office, I noticed Michael and Maya smirking in the tense atmosphere. The president then dropped a bombshell, instructing me to resign by the end of the month. My mind spun as I sought clarification. Michael and Maya had falsely accused me of overbilling for overtime, claiming that while others logged around 17 hours, I had exceeded 92 hours. The president, unaware of the full story, seemed impressed by Michael and Maya's records showing zero overtime. The reality was harsh. The inflated overtime figures were a result of handling additional tasks assigned by Michael and Maya. Yet, revealing this could portray me as unable to manage my time effectively. I firmly presented the facts, asserting that I hadn't overbilled but struggled to complete my workload within regular hours. The president sighed deeply, expressing doubt yet acknowledging the lack of evidence to pursue the matter further. Still, he insisted that they couldn't retain someone who worked at such a slow pace. Resigned to the situation, he suggested my resignation, his mind seemingly made up. Told to leave the company I had devoted 40 years to, a deep weariness settled in. Despite my dedication and handling of Michael and Maya's additional workload, my efforts went unappreciated. I agreed to resign at the end of the month, acknowledging that my days at the company were numbered. Despite the unfair circumstances, I remained committed to finishing my tasks with the same dedication I had always shown. As I made my decision known to the president, I caught Michael and Maya exchanging smug smiles of satisfaction. As I exited the office, Maya taunted me with a sarcastic, "Thanks for quitting," her sneer cutting through me. I responded with a silent, unwavering stare, while Michael, who had always been keen on reducing labor costs, nodded in approval, labeling me as someone who exploited overtime. Observing their gleeful exchange, I began to think about the transition process. I meticulously prepared documents for all my clients and ensured I bid them proper farewells through meetings or written communications. Since I couldn't arrange a personal meeting with the president, I wrote letters to inform them about my successor. A week after my resignation, while I was enjoying a quiet moment at home, my phone started ringing. The caller ID showed it was the company. I hesitated, thinking I had already handled all necessary formalities, including my social insurance paperwork. Yet, persistent calls from both the company and personal numbers belonging to Michael and Maya eventually compelled me to answer. The president's voice came through urgently. "Who exactly are you?" he asked. With a touch of irony, I replied, "Just an unemployed woman who quit your company, nothing more." His response was quick, describing the chaos that had erupted since my departure. He revealed he had received 57 calls requesting to halt transactions with the company and pleaded desperately for my return. Reluctantly, I headed back to the office. Upon arrival, I found Michael and Maya waiting for me, both looking pale and exhausted, with dark circles under their eyes. Michael, clearly stressed, explained, "Since you left, we've been overwhelmed with calls to stop transactions, not just from your clients, but also from prospective companies we were planning to work with. What did you do?" Maya echoed his suspicions, clearly disappointed by the thought that I might have resorted to unethical tactics. Their worn-out expressions reflected the difficulty they faced managing all the cancellations. While I hadn't manipulated any clients, I had a hunch about why the transactions had been halted. I shared my thoughts, but Michael accused me of orchestrating the situation and demanded that we go to the president's office immediately. He practically dragged me along. Inside the president's office, with Michael and Maya by my side, the president met me with a direct, intense stare. With a firm tone, Michael took the lead, turning to the president to continue our discussion about the unfolding situation. I entered the president's office with Michael leading the way and Maya closely following, both exuding a misguided sense of authority. Despite their earlier accusatory tones, the president's question focused on the abrupt halt in transactions following my departure. I took a deep breath and explained that while other tax accounting firms offered cheaper services, our clients remained loyal primarily because of the personalized attention I provided. Michael immediately questioned my value to the company, and Maya scoffed at my explanation, both doubting my contributions. Unfazed, I detailed my approach of offering customized tax-saving strategies that genuinely resonated with our clients. Michael dismissed my methods as inefficient, advocating for their manual-based operations, which he claimed were more practical. The president sighed deeply, a clear sign he was beginning to see the fundamental differences in our approaches. In a moment of seriousness, the president shared a revelation. I got an unexpected call from my father, the former president. Some clients who halted transactions went directly to him to negotiate on your behalf. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected clients to go to such lengths for me. Dad emphasized that the tax department thrived thanks to your contributions. You not only managed your clients effectively, but also enriched your colleagues with knowledge even Michael couldn't match. If you hadn't turned down the promotion, you'd be higher than a department head by now. The current president looked at me with regret, while Maya stood there stunned, likely processing the notion that I could have been her superior. The president then apologized for pressuring me to resign and asked if I would consider retracting my resignation, adding, "According to my father, you are indispensable." While I appreciated the president's change of heart, I hesitated. Michael, visibly upset, interrupted, protesting the president's decision. "Why was she chosen over me?" he demanded. Maya chimed in, supporting Michael's leadership and questioning my preferred approach. However, the president addressed them sternly, revealing that since my resignation, numerous complaints had been filed about the tax department. The tension in the room escalated as he detailed how Michael and Maya had been delegating their duties to others and failing to provide the specialized attention clients required, which had led to significant chaos and customer dissatisfaction. "We need her back if we are to restore client trust and get back on track," the president insisted. Michael's face turned ashen as the president laid bare how he had been offloading client declaration forms onto subordinates, even passing off some of Maya's tasks. The president highlighted the irony, noting that Michael had accused me of being a salary thief. Observing Michael and Maya's pale expressions, the president then revealed a rumored romantic involvement between them, putting Michael in a position where he struggled to defend his actions and his relationship. Michael claimed he was merely mentoring Maya as her superior. However, the president presented receipts from the accounting department that showed dining expenses filed by Michael. Sweating profusely and lacking a convincing defense, Michael stumbled over his words. Maya, equally shaken, stood frozen as the president accused them of inflating expense claims, neglecting their duties, and violating company policy with an office affair. In a calm yet authoritative voice, the president announced their immediate termination. Michael and Maya scrambled to negotiate, promising to retract their expense claims and pleading to keep their jobs. "I have a family," Michael cried desperately, trying to reverse his termination. Maya echoed his plea, promising to apologize to me and others for the additional workload they had imposed. Realizing the gravity of the situation and concerned about her tarnished reputation due to the affair, Maya begged for another chance. Observing their desperation, I offered some advice. "Why not stop resisting? This isn't dignified," I suggested. Michael glared at me and snapped, "Shut up. What would a single person like you understand?" I sighed and reminded him, "Michael, you are the one who got me fired. This is karma. What goes around comes around. Why not take some responsibility?" Frustrated, Michael looked away while Maya bit her lip in distress. Knowing more about their misconduct, I turned to the president with a smile and asked if I should share those details. Michael and Maya frantically tried to silence me, fearing further exposure. I calmly issued an ultimatum, warning them to step aside gracefully or risk a fuller revelation of their actions. I reminded them that wrongdoing would eventually surface and urged them to confront reality before things worsened. At my words, both Michael and Maya collapsed to their knees, and the president terminated them on the spot. Later, I revealed more of their misdeeds, including Michael faking business trips to spend time with Maya and their insidious tactics of harassing employees they disliked into quitting. Despite my efforts to support these employees, Michael and Maya's relentless strategies involved assigning sudden high-pressure tasks with tight deadlines, driving many to resign. Initially, Those employees had asked me to stay quiet, but now that they were happily employed elsewhere, I knew it was time to speak up. The president was furious at my revelations and considered withholding Michael and Maya's final salaries. He intended to thoroughly investigate the inflated expense claims. Michael, with tears in his eyes, begged the president not to cut his salary, fearing its impact on his family. As the truth unraveled, Michael's affair with Maya became public, leading to Michael's divorce and the one facing compensation claims as part of the lawsuit, marking the consequential aftermath of their actions. I learned of the situation when Michael reached out to me, seeking understanding. Michael and Maya found themselves in dire straits after their termination, struggling to secure new positions within the tax industry. The tight-knit community quickly spread word of their misconduct, making potential employers wary of hiring them. Faced with the need to cover divorce compensation and everyday living expenses, they resorted to laboring on construction sites, a dramatic shift from their previous corporate roles. Maya often called me in tears, pleading for help. "Abigail, please help. I only wanted a better life and never really liked Michael," she sobbed. Despite her distress, I couldn't overlook that their predicament was self-inflicted. Their actions had affected many, myself included, and I had to remind Maya firmly that she was facing the natural consequences of her choices. "You can't unring a bell," I told her. "Facing these hardships is the result of your actions." Despite Maya's protests and palpable despair, the reality of her situation remained unchanged. As for myself, I chose to distance myself from the corporate turmoil. Even though the president implored me to return, I declined. Once pushed to resign, I harbored no desire to go back. Instead, I found solace and a new purpose helping out at a friend's tax office, supplementing my income while enjoying a more relaxed lifestyle. This experience sparked the idea of starting my own practice. In my own space, I could dedicate myself fully to clients' needs, providing personalized service without the constraints of corporate bureaucracy and without any sense of superiority. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one filled with excitement and opportunities to pursue what truly mattered. My second life had just begun, and I eagerly looked forward to the journey ahead, optimistic about the fresh opportunities to make a meaningful impact in a way that aligned with my values and aspirations. It's not uncommon for families to experience disagreements or face financial struggles. Yet, some families manage to maintain unity and navigate through everyday life without breaking apart. I don't think it's essential to determine which type of family is happier. My name is Claire. Since my early days, people have labeled me as an unusual child. I'm not sure what makes me strange, perhaps it's just because others say so. Being called odd isn't really an issue for me, but it becomes problematic when it causes my parents to shun me. Growing up, I felt isolated. From a young age, I possessed an acute awareness of others' thoughts and feelings, though I couldn't explain how. This ability felt as natural to me as moving one's hands or breathing does to most people. Once, a sense of malice emanated from one of my father's colleagues who visited our home. Sensing danger, I advised my mother to be cautious, but she dismissed my warnings. Later, this colleague attempted to involve my father in a risky contract, but remembering my caution, my father opted out. This decision saved us from financial ruin when the colleague later went bankrupt. Another incident occurred while I was out with my mother. I sensed danger from a man nearby and instinctively pulled her away to safety. Moments later, we learned he had committed a theft right where we had been standing. My ability to sense these dangers only alienated me further from my family. They regarded my peculiarities with suspicion and distanced themselves from me, leaving me to feel profoundly lonely. What felt normal to me was bizarre to others. I learned to suppress my insights, pretending nothing was wrong to blend in and avoid being labeled as strange. My sister Quinn, who is 5 years younger, grew up under a different light. Cherished and adored by our parents, she embodied the typical, cheerful child, in stark contrast to my darker, more mysterious persona. As years passed, Quinn enjoyed our parents' affection, while I was left in the shadows, treated as an oddity even though I no longer shared my unusual perceptions. Quinn began to adopt our parents' attitudes, treating me with disdain and claiming that being around me tarnished her image. My parents did little to discourage her behavior, further deepening the rift between us. As I grew older, I worked hard to control and hide my unique abilities, not out of shame, but to protect myself from further pain and isolation. Despite the challenges, I've come to terms with my identity. I realize now that my experiences, although painful, have shaped who I am. I am learning to navigate life with a quiet strength, holding on to who I am, while still trying to find a place where I can belong without needing to hide my true self. I remember when a data scout from a local entertainment production company spotted my younger sister. She was still in elementary school, but they saw potential in her and invited her to join their agency. Proudly, she told me, "It's clear why they picked me. I'm meant to be on TV." Our parents were thrilled, envisioning a glamorous future for her. Despite the excitement, I felt uneasy about it. After years of suppressing my strange ability to sense danger, I broke my silence, cautioning her to reconsider. However, my sister misunderstood my intentions, accusing me of being jealous because I wasn't as outgoing or traditionally attractive as her. She snapped, "Don't be weird and stop blocking my path." Our parents sided with her, either dismissing or having forgotten about my unusual sensitivity. Later, during my time in junior high, an incident reinforced my decision to remain silent about my abilities. A college student doing an internship at our school, aspiring to be a senior fitness instructor, gave an inspiring talk and quickly became popular, especially among the female students. Yet, as I observed him, a chilling sense of dread washed over me. Despite my rule to keep my abilities hidden, the potential danger to my classmates compelled me to act. I approached a teacher, someone who seemed approachable and understanding, and urged him to monitor a specific area after school without revealing the full extent of my concerns. Surprisingly, he agreed. He didn't ask for details, perhaps out of a simple trust rather than naivety. The next day, chaos unfolded when it was discovered that the intern had violated privacy laws. He had attempted to set up a hidden camera in the women's restroom, but thanks to the teacher's timely intervention, a crisis was averted, protecting the female students from becoming victims of an invasion of privacy. Meanwhile, my sister's journey into the entertainment industry took a sour turn. She joined the agency with enthusiasm, but soon it became clear that it was a scam. There were no real lessons or auditions. Instead, she was asked to pay exorbitant fees. Eventually, the agency abruptly closed down, leaving her devastated and financially exploited. In her frustration and despair, she lashed out at me, blaming me for her misfortune, claiming I had ruined her future. Her accusations were unfounded, yet she clung to them, perhaps as her way of coping with the disappointment. This whole ordeal only deepened the rift between us. She believed her accusations against me, needing someone to blame to make sense of her pain. It was heartbreaking, yet another reminder of how misunderstood I was within my own family. Growing up tagged as the odd one had always isolated me from others, and this was no exception with my own family. They saw me drift further away, as I unintentionally moved into the shadows of my younger sister's more vibrant presence. Despite feeling a sense of accomplishment for helping prevent a crisis at school, I was anxious about being further stigmatized. The day after the incident, the teacher who had acted on my advice called me into the staff room. I entered, bracing myself for another round of judgment, but instead, I was met with understanding. "You knew something was going to happen, didn't you?" he asked quietly. There was no point in pretending, so I confessed about my unusual ability. To my surprise, the teacher revealed that he was familiar with such abilities because his aunt possessed similar powers. He empathized with my situation and arranged for me to meet her. Her name was Natalia. When I met her, her eyes, kind yet piercing, immediately made me feel seen. She shared her own struggles with her abilities, having lived a life of concealment and inner turmoil. This conversation was a turning point for me. It alleviated many of my fears and doubts. Natalia became more than just a mentor to me. She was a beacon of understanding in a world where I had felt perpetually misunderstood. She taught me how to navigate life with my abilities without having to hide who I was. This newfound mentorship allowed me to start living more openly, embracing aspects of normalcy that had once seemed out of reach. However, the fallout from my sister's failed venture into the entertainment industry strained our relationship further. She became more distant, and the only interactions we had were filled with her grievances or mocking remarks. Her emotional unpredictability was something even my abilities couldn't foresee. She often belittled my achievements, like getting accepted into a prestigious university, a place she had failed to secure for herself. Her frustration was palpable, and rather than sharing in my success, she chose to see it as a personal slight. Our parents, ever the consolers, continued to pamper her, only adding to the rift between us. They coddled her through her disappointments while I navigated my path largely alone, supported by Natalia's guidance. Despite the challenges, Natalia's mentorship had given me a new perspective on life, allowing me to move forward with a sense of peace and acceptance, knowing that while I may be misunderstood by my family, I was no longer alone in the world. My sister, always intelligent and driven, had faced a surprising setback when she didn't pass the entrance exam for her first-choice high school. This failure seemed to ignite a fierce determination in her. She redirected her frustration into her studies at the high school she eventually attended, excelling to the point of being the top student for 5 consecutive years. Her hard work paid off when she was accepted into a prestigious national university in one try. She boasted to me, "I got into the most challenging university, yours doesn't even compare." I responded with a casual, "Yeah, I guess so," trying to keep the peace. However, my sister took my light-hearted reply as a dismissive slight to her achievements, which sparked a heated reaction from her. My parents, fearful of her fiery temper, could only watch in dismay and later unfairly blamed me for her outbursts, calling me the troubled daughter. I bit my tongue, holding back the retort that it was not I who was the source of trouble. As I neared the end of my college years, I found myself at a crossroads about my future. My experience growing up, marked by isolation and misunderstanding due to my unique empathetic abilities, made me skeptical about my prospects in a traditional job setting. Sensing negative emotions was second nature to me, however, these often left me feeling overwhelmed and wary of forming close interpersonal relationships. Conflicted about my ability to thrive in a corporate environment, I sought advice from my mentor, Natalia, who had once navigated similar challenges. She shared that she had chosen a path that allowed her to use her abilities constructively without being overwhelmed by the emotional baggage of others. She had worked as a fortune teller and counselor, roles that let her help people while maintaining a safe emotional distance. Inspired by her journey, she suggested, "Maybe you should consider something similar. Working freelance could allow you to leverage your sensitivity to assist others without the constant strain of navigating complex office dynamics." This advice opened a new perspective for me. It presented a way to use my empathic gifts to contribute positively to the world while protecting my well-being. The idea of freelancing, where I could manage my interactions and not be bound by the conventional employee-employer relationship, seemed like a promising path to both personal fulfillment and professional success. Having found a calling that resonated with my unique abilities, I decided to follow in the footsteps of my mentor, Natalia. She guided me on how to effectively do the job and attract clients using the internet. This setup allowed me to work comfortably from home. However, when I shared this decision with my family, their reaction was mixed with skepticism and traditional expectations. "What kind of job is it?" they questioned, quickly followed by, "At least you should handle the household chores," and concerns about how I would manage living expenses. Although I had anticipated their practical concerns, I couldn't help but feel disheartened by their lack of support. It seemed inevitable that this would only deepen the disrespect my sister had for me, which added to my sadness. As I embarked on my new career from home, the initial phase was filled with challenges. Job offers were scarce, and I had to navigate through a lot of trial and error. With Natalia's ongoing support, I slowly started to find my footing. Financially, I wasn't able to contribute to household expenses for the first year, so I dedicated myself to managing the home, which seemed to satisfy my mother and mitigate my father's displeasure somewhat. After about a year, I began earning enough to contribute financially. When I first brought money home, my father's reaction was sarcastic. "Huh, you finally got some money, didn't you?" Despite this, the expectations for my contributions to household chores remained high, unchanged by my financial contributions. My sister graduated from university 3 years later and secured a position with a foreign-affiliated company, which boasted a generous salary. She often mocked my home-based work, calling it trivial and labeling me a parasite at home. She boasted, "My pay will increase, and I'm sure I'll be making 10 times more than you. Someone like you could never make that much money." After a year and a half, she was promoted and continued to flaunt her success, yet she contributed nothing to the household chores or expenses. The bulk of household work fell to my mother and me, with my mother passing most of it on to me. I tried to discuss the fairness of household contributions with my sister, Quinn. "You need to take better care of yourself," I suggested. "Instead of spending all your money on yourself, you should contribute some to the household." Her response was dismissive and cutting. "You're a waste of space, sister. You should do all our housework. I'm saving my money for my future." This dynamic caused me to reflect on my own choices. While my parents seemed to tacitly support Quinn's perspective, dismissing my concerns as unavoidable sibling dynamics, I found comfort and fulfillment in my work, even if it was unconventional. My job provided me with a sense of stability and satisfaction that I wasn't willing to give up, even amidst the family tensions. It was clear that my path was diverging from traditional expectations, but it suited me, allowing me to use my abilities in a meaningful way while managing the complexities of my home life. When my sister abruptly announced her engagement, our family was taken completely by surprise. She revealed that she was marrying a wealthy man who earned more than $15 million per year. Her initial words were tinged with an apology for her own happiness, seemingly aware of how it might overshadow me. "Oh, I'm sorry I became happy first, sister. But isn't marriage just a pipe dream for someone like you?" she said, implying that my own prospects were dim in comparison. The following Sunday, amidst our bewildered state, she introduced us to her fiancé. He was a young man named Logan, who arrived dressed smartly in a suit and tie, exuding confidence and capability. "My name is Logan, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I've come to propose to Quinn," he said with a polite and dignified manner. My sister beamed with pride, asserting, "I told you he was wonderful, and he is, isn't he? I'll be happy with him." During the conversation, my father, overwhelmed yet curious, inquired about Logan's profession. Logan explained that he was currently training at a company owned by his father's friend, preparing to take over as the future president. My sister, tearful and evidently thrilled, elaborated that Logan's father was the company's president, and Logan was gaining experience outside the family business to better prepare for his future role. As the afternoon progressed, despite the pleasant exchanges, I sensed a deep, inexplicable darkness surrounding Logan, a shadow that seemed at odds with his polished exterior. This sense of unease was something I couldn't ignore, given my unique ability to perceive underlying emotions and threats. Feeling increasingly worried about my sister rushing into marriage after less than 5 months of dating, I broke my silence. "Listen, Quinn, you've only been dating him for a short time. Get to know him a little better before deciding to marry him," I urged, my voice filled with concern rather than judgment. But my attempt to convey caution was vague, driven by an instinctive reaction to the darkness I sensed rather than concrete evidence. Quinn reacted defensively, dismissing my concerns outright. "What exactly are you on about, sister? He is a man of great distinction and the company's future president. You are just upset because you compare your situation to my happiness. You're a pitiful person, aren't you? Her words stung, and my parents quickly sided with her, scolding me for interfering. Because you're a nobody, you should at least stop interfering with your sister's happiness, they admonished. Their reaction was clear. They saw Logan's wealth and prospects as a secure future for Quinn, and, by extension, a peace of mind for themselves in their old age. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions and unable to convey the ominous feelings I harbored about Logan, I felt isolated and misunderstood. My warnings, rooted in a genuine concern for Quinn's well-being, were cast aside as mere jealousy, leaving me to grapple with the frustration and helplessness of watching the engagement proceed. The tension was palpable on the day when both families met for the first time. My sister's fiancé, Logan, and his parents carried themselves with the same polished demeanor he did. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of dark clouds looming behind their bright exteriors. Despite my reservations, the wedding day arrived too quickly, and in the flurry of excitement, I had no opportunity to share my misgivings with my overly enthused family. As we prepared to leave for the ceremony, my sister threw in a boast, unsolicited as ever. You know, the president of our company is attending today's reception. Do you have any idea how talented and promising I am? It's a great honor. But I know you, my little stay-at-home sister, can't even fathom how significant this is. Her words were sharp, intended to belittle me before we even stepped out. The ceremony itself was beautiful. My sister exchanged vows of eternal love at the hotel's grand wedding hall, her face beaming with joy. Yet, as I watched her, my heart was heavy with concern about the longevity of that happiness. The company president, a guest of honor, delivered a speech that clearly delighted my sister. Everyone seemed caught up in the celebration, but the atmosphere shifted for me during the reception. As the evening progressed, I noticed that while other tables were served with drinks and hors d'oeuvres, our table remained starkly empty. Initially, I thought it was merely a delay, but it became apparent that something was amiss as everyone else around us began their meal. The guests at my table grew increasingly uncomfortable with the oversight. Then, my sister approached me, leaning in with a smirk. She whispered harshly, "Free food is not prepared for people like you. This food is too good for you. You should just go home and eat potato chips. Just leave our wedding gift and go home." Her words, meant to humiliate, were confirmed by Logan's wide grin from across the room. Even my parents, after a moment of feigned surprise, muttered, "Well, Quinn is right." Shock gave way to anger as I stood up, confronting the blatant disrespect. "I never thought you could be this cruel," I said aloud to my parents and anyone else listening. "How could you accept such rudeness?" Their response was a bitter glance, offering no defense against my sister's cruelty. Resigned yet resolute, I declared, "I understand. I'm going home. But know this, you'll regret this." As I turned to leave, my sister scoffed, suggesting my exit was the howl of a loser. Amidst the escalating whispers of the gathered crowd, a man abruptly stood up, introducing himself as Josiah, the groom's brother. His next words sent shockwaves through the hall. "My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so. I can't take it anymore. Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be its president. You're trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family. Logan, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it, trying to leech off your wife because you're unemployed now." The hall erupted into murmurs and gasps, as the glossy veneer of the wedding cracked under the weight of Josiah's revelations. The celebration turned into a scene of disbelief, as the true colors of the groom's family were laid bare for all to see. At the wedding, as the groom's brother Josiah revealed the harsh truths about Logan and his family's financial struggles, the atmosphere turned chaotic. My sister's initial shock quickly transformed into fury. "What do you mean you cheated me? What do you mean you're unemployed?" Her face flushed a deep crimson as she bombarded Logan with questions, her emotions escalating from anger to utter despair, tears streaking down her face. The revelation blindsided my parents as well. Their cries of disbelief and outrage filled the hall, mirroring the tumult unfolding before us. Meanwhile, Logan and his parents could only stand in stunned silence, their facades crumbling under the weight of the exposed truths. Before the wedding chaos erupted, Josiah had privately shared his concerns and apologies with me, knowing my reputation for honesty and intervention. He had promised to speak out if he sensed any wrongdoing at the reception. As my sister vented her anger on Josiah, another unexpected defender stood up. This time it was the president of my sister's company, a man who commanded immediate attention with his authoritative demeanor. "Enough of this," he declared sternly. "You have no right to blame the groom. What makes you think you have the right to criticize him or his brother?" The room fell silent, all eyes on him as he continued. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your sake," he admitted, looking directly at my sister. "If you weren't Claire's sister, to whom I owe so much, I wouldn't be here." My sister's expression shifted from fury to confusion as the president turned towards me. "Claire has saved numerous companies from crises, including your own," he explained to the stunned audience. Under her mentor's guidance, she became a consultant for corporate revitalization. Without any managerial knowledge, but using her unique abilities, she has helped companies find the right path to recovery. He revealed that 8 months ago, under my advisory, my sister's company had undergone significant positive changes, making it stronger than ever. The company president expressed his deep gratitude towards me, acknowledging my contributions publicly. My sister, visibly shaken by these revelations, stammered, Claire. I didn't know anything about that. Aren't you a stay-at-home nobody?" Her words, now hollow and embarrassed, contrasted sharply with the respect I was receiving. The president concluded, "Thanks to Claire, my business is thriving. Thanks to her, I have a good job, and now I earn more than you do." He glanced at my parents, adding, "And all the money that has been coming into your house." It wasn't Quinn's. The wedding hall erupted into a mix of murmurs and disbelief. The wedding, now overshadowed by lies and revelations, descended into further chaos. With the wedding gifts refunded and the financial contributions revealed to be misunderstood, my sister faced the harsh reality of her situation. She had relied on Logan's supposed income and even signed a lease for a condo in her name, decisions she now regretted deeply. Amidst her sobs, Logan's cold dismissal cut through. "You signed the contract on your own, didn't you? I don't know anything about it. Divorce, 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 you crook," she cried out, the day that was supposed to be the happiest of her life disintegrating into a disastrous scene of accusations and heartbreak. This catastrophic wedding was a stark reminder of the consequences of deception and the complex web of relationships and expectations that had been built on unstable foundations. Logan might have tried to justify his deceitful behavior, claiming there were reasons for his actions, but none could excuse the turmoil he caused. Not long after the disastrous wedding, my younger sister divorced him and sought alimony. Unfortunately, Logan, unemployed and with his parents financially unstable, couldn't afford much. They managed to scrape together just enough to cover the wedding expenses, but it was far from enough to handle the costs of the condo they had contracted for. The dream home intended for their life together was never lived in, and the remaining loan became a suffocating burden for my sister. The scandalous events of the wedding didn't stay within the walls of the reception hall. Word spread quickly among the company officials present, severely damaging my sister's reputation. The company president, once supportive, lost faith in her, relegating her to a lower position. She was demoted to working in a basement reference room, handling menial tasks far beneath her previous status as a rising star in the company. The humiliation was too much for her, yet she couldn't afford to leave the job because of her financial obligations. Logan and his family's plan to latch onto my sister's resources had failed miserably. They too found themselves struggling, taking whatever day jobs they could find to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Josiah, Logan's brother who had exposed the truth at the wedding, had distanced himself from his family's deceit. As for my own family, my parents quickly abandoned any pretense of support for my sister, as she hit rock bottom. They then turned to me, but I had reached my limit. I told them I was done being manipulated and announced my decision to leave. I don't want to be pushed around by you guys anymore. Goodbye. With that, I left, signed a lease on a new apartment, and started a fresh chapter in my life. I didn't abandon my sister in her time of need, though. I took her in as she struggled with her significantly reduced salary and inability to contribute financially to our parents' household. Consequently, I also stopped the financial support I had been providing to my parents, who quickly found themselves overwhelmed by their unchanged, high living standards. Meanwhile, my own career flourished. I continued to leverage my unique abilities to help companies and individuals positively, building a reputation as a reliable consultant and advisor. In an unexpected turn of events, I began dating Josiah after the wedding. His honesty at the wedding had revealed a man of integrity, and recently, he had asked me to consider a more permanent future together. As things stand, marriage seems likely, and I can't help but feel excited about the prospect of building a life with Josiah, a man whose heart is clear of any dark shadows. This is the story of my challenging experiences with my overbearing mother-in-law and my indifferent husband who failed to stand up for me. I will use pseudonyms in my account for privacy reasons. Let's just say my name is Eloise, my husband's name is Grant, and my mother-in-law's name is Adeline. My grandmother Madeline, a crucial pillar of support, is also a significant part of this story. Initially, Jonathan was a decent boyfriend, and I was head over heels in love with him. When he proposed, I didn't hesitate to accept. However, marriage revealed a different side of our relationship. I quickly noticed warning signs, particularly Grant's excessive attachment to his mother, Adeline, who had a strong influence over him. Adeline started causing trouble from the moment she moved in with us. One day, she entered the room with some documents and demanded, "Eloise, you need to sign these papers immediately. It's for your own good." Puzzled, I asked, "What are these papers, Adeline?" "It's a rock-solid prenuptial agreement," she replied. "It states that in the event of a divorce, neither of you can claim each other's assets. Sign it now." Shocked, I responded, "Did you arrange a prenup without discussing it with us?" "This is humiliating, Adeline. Why would you do this?" "I made this agreement to protect my son," she insisted. "You make much less than he does, and this house belongs to him. We can't trust you not to go after his wealth if you two split up. I'm not the villain you're making me out to be, Adeline. This is absurd. I refuse to sign a prenup on the spot like this. I'm offended you didn't even consult us." To my surprise, Jonathan chimed in, "Actually, I knew about the prenup. It's not a big deal, Eloise. If you're not after my money, you shouldn't have a problem signing it." I was stunned to learn that Adeline and Jonathan had discussed this without my knowledge. It wasn't about the money. I wasn't with Jonathan for financial gain. In fact, I had a sizable inheritance coming my way, something I hadn't shared with Jonathan yet. Over the following days, Jonathan and I argued constantly while Adeline continued to verbally berate me. It was a distressing time, but thankfully, my grandmother Madeline was there to provide the emotional support I desperately needed. After deciding not to sign the prenuptial agreement immediately, I sought advice from my grandmother. She listened carefully as I explained the situation, and then asked me with concern, "Honey, are you sure you want to marry this man? It seems like he and his mother are already teaming up against you, and you two aren't even married yet." I sighed, "It's just this one issue, Grandma. I really love Grant, and I believe he loves me too. I can't imagine being with anyone else. He's genuinely a good person at heart. If you're set on marrying him, then I think you should agree to the prenup," Grandma advised thoughtfully. "I'll have my lawyer look over the terms to ensure they are fair. But I have one condition: you mustn't reveal that your grandparents are millionaires. Curious, I asked, why shouldn't I tell them about our family wealth? Eloise, you're seeing things through rose-tinted glasses, Grandma replied wisely. Your grandfather and I worked hard for our fortune, and I won't have someone taking advantage of you. Okay, Grandma. I haven't told them anything about our wealth, and I won't, just as you've asked. Jonathan is a decent man. I'm sure if his mother oversteps, he'll stand by his wife. Unfortunately, my trust was misplaced. Jonathan turned out to be far from the supportive husband I expected, and his mother was even worse. Reluctantly, I signed the prenup, and soon after we married, Adeline's true nature emerged. She began to abuse me regularly, verbally and even physically at times. I'm ashamed of the specifics, but I will share one pivotal incident. One evening, after a long day at work, Adeline burst into my room with a smirk and thrust a heavy bag of laundry at me, demanding I wash it. I didn't protest. Resisting would only result in more harassment, as she would complain to Grant, leading to further verbal abuse from both of them. This had become my daily reality. As I carried the bag down the hallway, Adeline deliberately tripped me. I fell hard, injuring my ankle and crying out in pain. Adeline just laughed and walked away. After I managed to put an ice pack on my swollen ankle, I called Grant. Grant, I fell and hurt my ankle because your mother tripped me, I told him, my voice filled with pain and frustration. Don't make up lies about my mom, Eloise. She would never do that. You're just trying to find a way to kick her out and get out of doing chores. Stop lying and defaming my mom, he accused without a hint of concern for my injury. That moment crystallized the harsh reality of my situation. Jonathan would never stand up for me against his mother, no matter how blatant the abuse became. It was a turning point in our marriage, leading me to reconsider my choices and the future I wanted for myself. I had reached my limit. I'm not lying, Grant. Please, you have to believe me, I pleaded over the phone, my voice tinged with desperation. Don't waste my time, Eloise. Go back and do the chores my mom gave you. I don't want to hear another complaint from you, Jonathan retorted and then simply hung up. He never stood up for me, always making it seem as though I was the problem. I usually kept quiet because I didn't want to drive him away, but this time, something inside me snapped. In secret, I had been seeing a therapist, a decision supported by my grandmother. The emotional toll of enduring constant mistreatment was overwhelming, and my therapist had begun to help me see the necessity of escaping this toxic environment. The situation with Adeline and Jonathan was spiraling out of control, and I was nearing my breaking point. Adeline's next move only fueled my resolve. She sent me a series of vile text messages asserting that I deserved her harsh treatment, and confidently claiming that Jonathan would never side against her. Furious and fed up, I resolved to take action, to not just escape, but to make them realize the gravity of their actions. The moment for change came unexpectedly. My beloved grandmother passed away. While I was heartbroken, there was a bittersweet relief knowing her suffering had ended, and she was at peace, perhaps reunited with my grandfather. Throughout this difficult time, Jonathan was absent. He didn't assist with the funeral arrangements, nor did he even attend the service. However, things took a bizarre turn when Jonathan learned that I had inherited $410 million from my grandparents. Suddenly, his demeanor changed, he became unusually attentive. The next day, I encountered yet another shock. Adeline was at the foot of my bed, giving me a creepily sweet look. What are you doing here, Adeline? I asked, bewildered by her presence and the way she stared at me while I slept. I came early to help you with chores. I made you tea, it's right beside your bed. I ordered a special batch just for you, she replied, her tone overly sugary. But why were you sitting in my room while I was sleeping? It's really creepy, Adeline, I insisted, my discomfort growing. I was trying to massage your feet, Eloise. I remember you hurt them carrying my laundry. I thought maybe I could help ease some of the soreness, she explained, as if her actions were perfectly normal. You literally tripped me that day, Adeline. How dare you come here and act like you're trying to help? Do you have no shame? I confronted her, my anger flaring. Oh, no need to be so dramatic, it was just an honest mistake. I didn't know you would fall, or that the laundry bag was that heavy. I've already massaged your foot and made up for it, haven't I? She retorted, dismissing the severity of her actions. At that moment, I knew things had to change. With my inheritance secured and my grandmother's wise words echoing in my memory, I began to plan my exit, not just from this house, but from the toxic cycle that had consumed my life. I was determined to reclaim my independence and find a way to live free from manipulation and abuse. If you think massaging my foot makes up for how you've treated me, you're delusional. Adeline, get out of my room. I can't stand to look at you right now, I said firmly, my voice filled with a mix of anger and exhaustion. All right, I'll be in the kitchen making breakfast. You don't need to worry about anything. I'll take care of everything, and make sure Jonathan has everything he needs too. Just take your time and freshen up, Adeline replied in a sickeningly sweet tone, leaving the room with an unsettling spring in her step. Her sudden change in behavior was disorienting. Even as I lay there, I felt like she had invaded my privacy and was acting completely unhinged. It was clear that money could drive people to extreme actions. Adeline was living proof. Jonathan must have filled her in about my inheritance, prompting this bizarre attempt at a change of heart. However, neither Jonathan nor Adeline knew that they wouldn't see a cent of my fortune. I had already made arrangements to ensure that. With renewed determination, I got out of bed and dressed in my best outfit. It was a day of reckoning, and I wanted to look the part. My therapy sessions had bolstered my confidence, and I was ready to stand up for myself. Clutching my bag, which contained some critical documents, I headed to the kitchen. Today was the day I would set things right. Upon entering the kitchen, I found Jonathan and Adeline chatting quietly, their faces lighting up with greedy smiles upon seeing me. Jonathan pulled out a chair for me while Adeline busied herself with fixing me a plate. Why did you make breakfast today? I could have managed on my own. Jonathan usually complains when anyone else does something around here, I remarked, my tone light, but edged with irony. It's no trouble at all, Eloise. I'm happy to do this for you, Jonathan chimed in quickly, his voice overly cheerful. Yes, it's just breakfast. My mom can handle this for you from now on. You won't have to lift a finger until we sell this house and move into a mansion. We'll even get a housekeeper until then. My mother can take care of all the chores, and I'll help her, Adeline added, her tone suggesting a poorly disguised attempt at flattery. You think buying my medications is a waste of money, but suddenly hiring a housekeeper is affordable. And how exactly do you plan on buying a mansion? Have you started robbing banks? I asked sarcastically, letting my disbelief show. Don't be ridiculous. We don't need to worry about money now, you just inherited a huge amount from your grandmother. We are essentially millionaires now. Your inheritance will be enough for all of us, Jonathan replied, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Their blatant display of entitlement and assumption over my inheritance was the last straw. It was time to reveal my plans and take back control of my life, ensuring that my hard-earned inheritance would be used according to my wishes, not theirs. Barely a day had passed since I received my inheritance, and already Jonathan and Adeline were weaving dreams about how they'd spend it. Their sudden shift from indifference to eagerness was almost comical. Yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job, Jonathan mused aloud, barely containing his excitement. I'm burnt out anyway. Maybe we could take a vacation, have some fun. What do you say? I couldn't help but burst into laughter, stunned by their audacity. It was as if a single day of pretending to be caring could erase the years of neglect and manipulation they had put me through. My laughter seemed to unsettle them, making them squirm under the weight of their own ludicrous plans. My God, it's only been 1 day since I got my inheritance, and look how quickly you've changed your tune. Money really does make a difference, doesn't it? I mocked. Let's not dredge up the past now. We had no idea you were about to come into such good fortune. We would have treated you better if we knew, Jonathan added, trying to justify their behavior. Yeah, you shouldn't keep secrets from your husband and in-laws, Eloise. That was sneaky of you, Adeline chimed in, her tone patronizing. And what should we do with all this money? I was thinking of a house, a mansion or a villa, perhaps. Maybe even a penthouse to suit our new status. We are millionaires now, after all. All my friends will be so jealous. Listening to their banter, I slowly pulled out the documents I had concealed in my folder. Adeline and Grant's eyes lit up, mistaking my gesture as an indication that I was about to officially share my windfall with them. Their faces were filled with anticipation, but they were in for a surprise. Holding the papers firmly in my hand, I corrected them. Actually, let me clarify something for you both. We are not millionaires. I am the millionaire here. This money is mine, received through my inheritance. But you got the money, and we share everything. We are married, after all, so you should be sharing with me, Jonathan argued, his voice a blend of entitlement and desperation. Yes, and as your mother-in-law and the only surviving family right now, you should share the money with me as well. We are family, after all. You are my daughter just as much as Jonathan is my son, Adeline added, trying to lay her claim. I couldn't help but smirk at the irony. It's interesting how I've suddenly become your daughter, Adeline. Just yesterday, I was nothing but the witch your son married. Anyway, don't get too carried away. We won't be family for much longer, not that we ever really were. What do you mean, Eloise? Grant's voice faltered, a note of panic threading through his question. I met his gaze steadily, ready to reclaim my life and my freedom from their manipulative grasp. I'm your mother-in-law, so I am family, Adeline argued with a tone of entitlement. How would you be my mother-in-law if I'm no longer married to your son? Once Jonathan is no longer my husband, you will be nothing to me, I responded calmly, my decision firm. What do you mean, Eloise? Why wouldn't I be your husband anymore? What's going on? Grant's confusion was apparent, his voice tinged with desperation. I've filed for divorce, I declared, the words resonating with finality. I did it the day after my grandmother passed away. I can't stay with you any longer, Grant. You're a terrible husband and you don't deserve that title. With that, I tossed the divorce papers onto the table for them to see. Jonathan and Adeline quickly scanned the documents, their expressions shifting from disbelief to panic as they read. Clearly, they hadn't anticipated that I would take such a decisive step. Why have you filed for divorce? This doesn't make any sense. You think I'm weak enough to stay in an abusive marriage forever? I challenged them, my tone laced with incredulity. Why are you surprised, Grant? I told you this was coming the very day Adeline tripped me. And now, you're still stuck in the past, I continued, my frustration growing. I've apologized for that already, and it's done. I can't change what happened. You need to be more forgiving. This isn't a big enough issue to warrant a divorce. Mom has already made amends for that, Jonathan replied, trying to downplay his mother's actions. So, Adeline confesses to tripping me, and all you do is tell me to get over it. Listen carefully, both of you. I'm divorcing you, and you won't get a cent of my inheritance. I can't believe I ever fell in love with someone as vile as you, Grant. I'm ashamed I tried so hard to please someone like you, Adeline. But this abuse ends now. We are definitely getting a divorce, and we can do this the easy way or the hard way, I stated firmly, my resolve clear. Suddenly, Jonathan and Adeline's demeanor shifted to anger. They likely didn't appreciate being called out so directly on their behavior. Realizing I had already filed for divorce, They knew I was serious. It wasn't just a threat to manipulate them into changing their ways. They were now forced to recognize that they couldn't control me or my decisions any longer. What's the use of divorcing me, Eloise? You have more money now because of your inheritance. It's a marital asset. I'll get half of it anyway, Jonathan argued, grasping at straws. You might think you'll get half, but much of it will end up being spent on lawyers, I retorted, already well informed and prepared for the legal battles ahead. I was ready to protect my assets and my peace, no matter the cost. Did you forget about the prenup you and your mother insisted on? The one Adeline was so adamant we sign. I reminded them coolly. Realization hit them like a ton of bricks. They had orchestrated their own downfall. Back then, they wanted to protect themselves, convinced no sane woman would tolerate their behavior indefinitely. The prenup was their safety net, designed to let them act without consequence. But in their short-sightedness, they never anticipated that I would someday inherit a fortune. The prenup was a long time ago. I'll talk to a lawyer and see what we can do. We are not letting you walk away with all that money, Jonathan blustered, a hint of panic in his voice. You're using this to threaten us, aren't you? You can't do anything, Eloise. We'll take your money and do as we please, Adeline sneered, trying to intimidate me. So, you're planning to challenge me in court? I asked, my tone even, unflinching. Don't worry, Eloise, we will make this very difficult for you. You can't just decide to get a divorce on your own. You need my signature too, remember that. Jonathan said, his voice tinged with spite. Really, Grant? You're going to deliberately make this process harder for me. That's fine. I'm prepared for everything. I have plenty of leverage of my own, I replied, my confidence unshaken. What do you mean, Eloise? Adeline's voice wavered, a trace of fear creeping in. Adeline, remember how you confessed to tripping me and how you've abused me in those texts. I'll be using them to file a police report. That should be interesting, shouldn't it? I stated matter-of-factly. No, you wouldn't, you can't do that to me. That's impossible. I'll just delete all the texts, Adeline stammered, panic setting in. Don't worry, Adeline. I've saved all the texts and forwarded them to some friends for safekeeping. I'm perfectly capable of reporting you to the police. And I can also demonstrate how Jonathan knew about the abuse and did nothing. This will certainly not look good for you in divorce court, I explained, my words leaving no room for doubt. Suddenly, Adeline and Jonathan were tripping over themselves to apologize, their tone shifting drastically as they realized the seriousness of the situation. They thought I had forgotten about the abuse, but I had been biding my time, gathering evidence for the right moment. As they scrambled to backtrack, I collected the divorce papers and made my way to the door. Don't leave, Eloise. Let's sit down and talk about this. We can handle this like adults, not make any hasty decisions, Jonathan pleaded, desperation clear in his voice. You have to stay. Where will you even go? Let's discuss this, Adeline added, trying to sound conciliatory. I'm moving into my grandmother's house. It's already been transferred to my name. I'll be living there while we sort out the divorce. I'm taking the papers with me so you can't tamper with them, I said, stepping out of the house, empowered and resolute, leaving them to stew in the mess they had created. As I left the house, I made it clear to Jonathan and Adeline not to think about tampering with any of my belongings. I've taken pictures of everything, I warned them, do not damage or dispose of anything. Despite their attempts to stop me, my friend was already waiting outside. I hopped into her car, and we drove off, leaving Jonathan and Adeline watching helplessly from the door. Settling into my new place, I immediately contacted a moving company to transport my belongings from the house. In the following months, Jonathan and Adeline tried everything they could to change my mind. I remained firm, reminding them that I was ready to involve the police since Jonathan was stalling on signing the divorce papers. Eventually, Jonathan consulted with a lawyer who confirmed that the prenup was ironclad, leaving him no room to maneuver. Under the pressure of my threats, and the very real possibility of his mother facing legal consequences, Jonathan reluctantly signed the divorce papers. He realized there was no chance of reconciliation, and that his actions had irreparably damaged our relationship. The fallout between Jonathan and Adeline was immediate. Jonathan blamed Adeline for the demise of our marriage, convinced that her interference had cost him a fortune. Their relationship deteriorated rapidly, leading to incessant arguments. Ultimately, Jonathan evicted Adeline from the house. With no financial support from Grant, and having been dependent on him for so long, Adeline found herself homeless and eventually sought refuge in a shelter for homeless women. I made sure to spread the word about the kind of people Jonathan and Adeline were, leading to their social isolation. Meanwhile, I embraced my new life with open arms. I continued to live in my grandmother's house, which held so much sentimental value for me. From my inheritance, I donated a substantial sum to women's support centers and planned further contributions to such causes. The remainder of my money was carefully invested, securing a stable future for myself and any future family I might have. I still maintained my job, as staying active and engaged was important to me. Life has been good, and I remain optimistic about the future. I look forward to the day I meet someone who truly deserves my love and companionship, someone who respects and values me as much as I do them.
Today marks my 65nd birthday. My name is Amelia, and though I'm already in my 60s, I've managed to lead a healthy life since finishing junior high. After graduating, I dedicated my time to working and raising my children. Time flew by, and before I realized it, I reached this age. The sudden loss of my beloved husband 5 years ago was a tough blow, but with support from friends and family, I've been making it through these past few years. Recently, I'm doing a bit of work, taking over some responsibilities my husband left behind. Despite a few minor challenges, I find the work fulfilling and I'm quite content with it. However, something else has been weighing on my mind. Just this morning, as I was reflecting on these thoughts, the doorbell rang. It was a delivery, a beautifully sealed envelope accompanied by a stunning floral arrangement. The card read, "Happy Birthday," and to my surprise, it was from my second son, Jaden. I had never received such a gesture from him when he was single. His wife, Lillian, who he married last year, must have arranged it. Lillian is strong-willed and thoughtful, living about an hour's drive away. They visit occasionally, showing their care and even inviting me on trips. I called Lillian to express my gratitude, and her cheerful voice warmed my heart as she wished me well and looked forward to our next meeting. She's truly more than Jaden deserves. However, the other letter I received posed a different scenario. It was from Owen, my eldest son. His actions and those of his wife have often been a source of strain. Just yesterday, his wife made some hurtful comments, suggesting that my presence was somehow embarrassing due to my modest living on a pension. Her words sparked a surge of anger in me, bringing years of pent-up frustration to the surface. In that moment, I was ready to confront her, but before I could, my second son's wife, pale and concerned, intervened. The irony of it all is that while Owen's wife had often looked down on me, fate had a way of turning the tables, as she eventually found herself in a challenging situation herself. This ongoing family dynamic has been tough, but moments like receiving flowers from Jaden and Lillian remind me of the kindness still present in my life. The sunlight dappled through the trees, creating a serene atmosphere that matched the elegance of my kimono. It was a perfect setting for a celebration, and I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement about the gathering. As I opened the birthday card earlier, I was surprised to see it was from Owen, my eldest son. Knowing him, I doubted he would have done this on his own. It must have been his wife, Bella's doing. Bella, who prides herself on her high education and elite job at a prominent corporation, has always been a challenge for me. With her assertive personality and elitist views, she often looks down on those she perceives as less educated or successful, including me. Despite only having a junior high education and working different jobs throughout my life, I felt her disdain deeply. Over time, Bella's arrogance only grew. She would drop by unannounced, demanding meals and occasionally asking for money behind Owen's back, even though they were financially stable thanks to Owen's management role at a restaurant chain. Despite this, my love for Owen, who shares traits with his gentle and somewhat delicate father, made me tolerate her behavior. However, it didn't make the hurt any less real. When Bella called to acknowledge she sent the card, her tone was brisk, rushed by her busy work schedule. "I'm glad you got it," she said quickly, before reminding me about a dinner party with relatives and instructing me to dress decently so I wouldn't embarrass her. Her words stung, but I held on to my gratitude for the gesture of the card. The dinner party was in honor of my niece, who was like a daughter to me. She was getting married and, opting out of a traditional wedding, chose a dinner to introduce her fiancé to the family. Owen, Bella, Jaden, and Lillian were all invited. As we arrived, I was accompanied by Jaden and his wife Lillian, who always brought warmth and support. The courtyard where the event was held was breathtaking. "It's a beautiful day, isn't it?" Lillian remarked, complimenting my kimono. "You look wonderful, it suits you perfectly." Their kind words uplifted me, contrasting sharply with Bella's earlier comments. As we mingled with the guests, I felt a sense of belonging and love for my family, despite the complexities of my relationship with Bella. The evening was about celebration, family, and new beginnings, and I was determined to focus on these positive elements, cherishing the support from those who truly cared. As we approached the elegant restaurant for my niece's dinner party, I expressed a playful regret to Jaden and his wife Lillian. "I wish I had worn a kimono too, it's such a lovely and luxurious place," I mused. Lillian chuckled, "Oh, come on, I can't buy you an expensive kimono just for tonight." Her light-hearted tone made us all smile. While we shared this light conversation, Owen and his wife Bella arrived, noticeably late. As they approached, Bella glanced at me and commented loudly enough for Owen to hear, "Wow, you actually dressed appropriately." Owen, looking embarrassed, tried to shush her, but she brushed him off. Deciding to avoid the brewing tension, I announced it was time to head inside. The restaurant was buzzing with about 35 relatives who warmly greeted me, making me feel cherished. From a distance, I overheard Bella whisper, presumably to a relative, "She is very well liked, isn't she? Is it out of pity?" I chose to ignore the comment and took my seat. The dinner began with a toast, celebrating my niece's new journey. Contrary to my expectations of a rural eatery, the restaurant offered an impressive menu and a fine selection of sake, recently featured in a notable Tokyo magazine. Bella, seemingly enjoying her meal and the sake, complimented the selection enthusiastically. As the evening unfolded, the mood was joyous, focused on celebrating my niece's marriage. Her partner, who had graduated from K University and worked at investment banking, was introduced to everyone. During one conversation, a relative praised him, and he humbly acknowledged his parents' support in his education. Bella, never one to miss an opportunity to tout her credentials, interjected, "I graduated from W University and I'm a chief compliance officer at a big company." No one had asked, and her bragging felt out of place. Owen attempted to intervene as Bella continued, "In this day and age, your academic background is crucial, isn't it?" But my niece's partner countered calmly, "I don't think so. There are many respectable people regardless of their academic background." Undeterred, Bella pressed on, asserting that those with education like hers had a higher understanding, implying those without were inferior. Her comments caused a stir, and my niece's partner, taken aback by her bluntness, replied, "You've probably had too much to drink." Owen, Lillian, and even other relatives tried to calm the situation, looking at Bella with disbelief. The festive atmosphere had been tainted by her words, but the family's effort to steer the conversation back to a celebratory tone helped soothe the tension. As the evening continued, I focused on the love and support around me, grateful for the family members who valued kindness and respect over credentials. As the family gathered for the dinner, Bella's comments grew increasingly uncomfortable. Addressing me directly, she said, "Without an education, you're stuck at a bad company and can't make good money. You know what I mean, don't you, Amelia?" Predicting the direction of her rant, I responded calmly but firmly, "I think you've had enough to drink, Bella. Maybe you should step outside for some fresh air." This seemed to strike a nerve. Bella's voice rose as she retorted, "What's the matter with you? Are you asking me to leave just because I'm a college graduate and you only finished middle school? I don't understand. Owen tried to intervene, but I met his gaze, signaling him to let me handle it. It felt necessary to address the issue head-on. Bella, if you have something to say, just say it, I encouraged her. She scoffed disdainfully, then declared loudly, if I were you, I'd be too embarrassed to even show my face among the relatives. You're just a middle school graduate with no qualifications. The room fell silent. All eyes were on us, including those of my niece and her newlywed partner. Bella continued, her voice dripping with condescendence, since your husband passed, you've barely worked. You're unemployed at 65, nowhere near retirement age like at my company where people work hard. You didn't even go to high school or gain any decent qualifications. Isn't that just pathetic? I certainly wouldn't want to end up like you, an aunt who can't compete because I work at a big company. Even the staff paused in their duties, caught off guard by her harsh words. Then, with everyone listening, she delivered her cruelest comment yet, a middle school graduate like you doesn't belong here. It's embarrassing. You're just a poor person living on a pension. I don't want anything to do with you, so why don't you just leave? Her words triggered a deep anger in me, an accumulation of years of tolerated disrespect pushing me to the brink. I felt my face flush with the effort to restrain my emotions. But before I could respond, Lillian, who looked quite distressed, interjected softly yet urgently, Bella, please, don't tell me you don't know. What? What don't I know? Bella snapped, her eyes flicking between Lillian and the surrounding family, who now displayed a mix of anger, disappointment, and disdain. Owen looked utterly deflated, his gaze downturned, reflecting his embarrassment and perhaps realization of the situation he had tolerated for too long. The air was thick with tension, but Lillian's intervention had shifted the focus, hinting at deeper layers of unspoken truths that Bella might not have been aware of, prompting a moment of critical reflection amidst the family chaos. What? What the hell? Bella exclaimed in confusion. Lillian, her voice trembling with emotion, then dropped a bombshell. Amelia actually owns this restaurant. Remember? The room fell silent, and Bella, unable to grasp the revelation, laughed dismissively. Don't make me laugh. What are you talking about? She snickered, skepticism written all over her face. But before the conversation could spiral further, the chef and other employees quickly gathered around me. Boss, are you okay? One of them asked, their concern evident. Another staff member, clearly upset, addressed Bella, she is a wonderful person. Do you have any idea how much she has helped us all? Bella turned to Owen, her face a mask of confusion and irritation. Owen, what's this all about? Owen sighed, a look of resignation on his face. It's true, Bella. Everything they're saying is true. Dad and Mom started this restaurant, and after Dad passed, Mom took over. She wasn't in a position to run it alone, so she lends her name to others to help manage it. Yes, she is the owner. Bella's disbelief turned to shock. Why didn't you tell me this before? If I told you, you'd just start scheming about how to take over the restaurant or the property, Owen replied, his voice tinged with frustration. I wanted to give Mom some peace, especially after she was so depressed following Dad's death. Besides, as soon as you knew about her educational background, you dismissed her. Jaden, overhearing the conversation, chimed in, Bella, my mother might live simply and cherish the house full of memories of my father, but she also owns a condominium in front of the station and other properties. Honestly, she probably earns much more than you do. Bella's face contorted with confusion and anger, but before she could retort, a quiet, calm voice cut through the escalating tension. Standing there was a man, not much older than myself, dressed in an elegant suit. What's the matter with you, Bella? Why don't you stop? He said calmly. Bella, taken aback, looked at the man and scoffed, who are you to talk to me like that? Her face drained of color as she recognized him. Do you know who I am? He asked, and then added with a slight smirk, no way. Chief Operating Officer? This man was a cousin of my late husband and, as it turned out, the managing director of the company where Bella worked. I've heard quite a bit about how you treat other employees, often judging them by their educational background, he continued, his voice stern. This has caused significant issues in projects and morale at the company. Bella looked like she was about to faint as the chief operating officer continued, "Given how you treat your own relative so poorly, I will need to reevaluate your role in the company. Expect a thorough review of your actions." Panic washed over Bella's face as she stammered, "Please, don't do this." But before she could plead further, Owen gently took her by the arm, signaling that it was time to leave the conversation. The room remained heavy with the impact of the revelations, and as they walked away, the collective mood shifted from tension to a somber realization of the truth laid bare. Owen gently placed his hand on Bella's shoulder and stopped her. "That's enough, Bella. If you had just been upfront with me from the start, none of this would have happened. You need to sort this out," he said calmly but firmly. In a burst of frustration, Bella lashed out at Owen, her face bright red with anger. "Let's get a divorce. You're always like this, ruining important events and causing trouble at work. I can't stay with you anymore, especially after how you spoke to my mother who sacrificed so much to raise us." Owen's voice was steady, devoid of emotion, signaling his final decision. As the reality of his words sank in, I couldn't help but cry, overwhelmed by the unfolding events. Jaden held me by the shoulders, and Lillian pulled me close, offering comfort. What the hell? Everyone is siding with this middle-aged woman. I won't be divorced and demoted. Don't be ridiculous, Bella protested, but her words were hollow. The chief operating officer spoke up, his tone soft yet firm. Bella, you can't stay here any longer. It's time for you to leave. This is an important place for us, and my aunt is a valued member of this family. We can't let you ruin this. My niece, having watched the entire ordeal, spoke to Bella with resolve. Please, just leave us alone. This is ridiculous and impossible to justify. Stunned and at a loss, Bella exited the room, accompanied by an employee. Owen turned to the rest of us, his expression one of apology. Everyone, I'm really sorry about my wife, he said, bowing slightly. My niece comforted me, rubbing my arm gently. Don't worry about it, Aunt Amelia. We all love you. And soon, that woman will no longer be your daughter-in-law. Yes, don't worry, Amelia, Lillian added softly. I respect you so much. Owen, looking relieved, confessed his next steps to me. I'll be happy if I can get the divorce. I'm really sorry, Mom. From now on, I'll make it up to you. The dinner eventually resumed, and despite the earlier disruption, we managed to conclude the evening without further incident. A few months later, Owen and Bella officially divorced. Bella tried to claim alimony in family court, but her appeal was unsuccessful. The managing director later informed us that an internal investigation at Bella's company had revealed her problematic behavior, which led to her being transferred to a less prominent branch office, a clear demotion. Unexpectedly, Owen later approached me with a proposal. He wanted to take over the restaurant. I had never pressured my children to continue the family business, preferring that they follow their own passions. However, I couldn't deny a slight sadness at the thought of handing over my late husband's legacy to someone outside the family. Mom, this restaurant is filled with Dad's love and passion, and I feel it too, Owen told me earnestly. I've always wanted to take it over, but I was afraid I couldn't handle it. Hearing his sincere desire to preserve and nurture the restaurant brought a profound sense of relief and pride. It was clear that the love for the family business ran deep, and with Owen's renewed commitment, the legacy would surely continue to thrive. I had been working for a restaurant chain, but when I saw how deeply you were respected and loved by your employees, I realized I wanted to help preserve the restaurant that you and Dad built together, Owen explained to me one day. His words filled me with gratitude. Thank you, Owen, that means a lot. But remember, there's much for you to learn and master before you're ready to take over, I told him. I'll guide you and teach you everything I know, so give it your best shot. Owen joined me at the restaurant, eager to dive into the nuances of the business. It was a busy and fulfilling time as I trained him, passing on the skills and knowledge that had been imparted to me. 1 year later, on my 66th RD birthday, as Owen and I were waiting outside our house, Jaden's car pulled up. Amelia, happy birthday. Lillian called out as she stepped from the car, her voice brimming with happiness. Jaden carefully lifted a baby from the car seat and cradled him in his arms. Now, it's the two of us, he said with a gentle smile. Their arrival was a joyous moment, Not only was it my birthday, but I was also celebrating becoming a grandmother. The sight of my grandchild brought a new kind of joy to my life. It felt like a perfect circle of life and love expanding with each passing moment. Now that I've become a grandmother, it's time I really started to prepare Owen to take over the restaurant business in earnest, I thought to myself. I want to be able to cook for my grandchild's future celebrations, and who better to continue serving delicious meals than Owen? Owen had diligently applied himself during his training and was ready to take on more responsibility. As we watched Jaden and Lillian with their new baby, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of hope for Owen's future as well. Maybe this year, as Owen becomes a fully fledged chef and takes over the restaurant, he might also find someone special, I mused to myself. It was a silent wish, one that I carried in my heart, hoping that Owen would find the same happiness and companionship that had enriched my own life. With all these new beginnings and celebrations ahead, the future seemed bright and full of promise.